But I think we have to start with the Virginia gubernatorial debate. It was so good. We weren't really even paying that close of attention to this debate up until recently, when like the lunatic attorney general put out how we found out he wanted to kill Republican children, and that kind of got our attention. And then it's not looking good for Winsome Sears, though it's getting better and better. Now it's within 2 points. The other gal, Spanberger, had a 7-point lead. So Spanberger, who's billing herself and actually kind of has been a more moderate Democrat. I mean, there's only so moderate any Democrat is in today's day and age, but at least this woman stood up against the defund the police thing when she was in Congress, and that was happening in Washington. And now she's running for Virginia governor because Glenn Youngkin has to get out. They have a term limit there. It's crazy. It's like 4 years, and then you got to get out. And unfortunately, Virginia appears ready to go blue, or at least it did before this race really got turned topsy-turvy thanks to those attorney general texts about killing Republicans and their children, which she's totally in favor of. His name is Jay Jones. So last night, not surprisingly, that issue was front and center. She's running against Youngkin's, his lieutenant governor, Winsome Sears. And let's just go through the sound bites because they're so good. Let's start with number 7, where the moderator, by the way, also did a very good job on pressing Spanberger about Jay Jones and whether she's still supporting his run for AG. Here's how that went.
I didn't hear an answer there on the endorsement issue, so I want to just make sure. Will you continue to endorse Jay Jones to be the next Attorney General of Virginia? And were you aware of these text messages before they released? You have 30 seconds.
In fact, it appears that it was those who released the text messages and held them for years. So the public was unaware who had knowledge of these text messages for many years.
What did you do about it?
I learned of these text messages the day that they came out, and I denounced them as soon as I learned of them.
She denounces murder.
And importantly, at this point, as we move forward, the voters now have this information that was withheld for them.
You're running to
presumably for political reasons, but the voters now have the information.
Ms. Spanberger, I understand what you're saying about the voters, but for you yourself, do you still continue to endorse Jay Jones? 15 seconds, yes or no?
We are all running our individual races. I believe my opponent has said that about her lieutenant governor.
We just want to clarify, what you're saying is that as of now, you still endorse Jay Jones as Attorney General.
I'm saying as of now, it's up to every voter to make their own individual decision.
You're a coward. You're a disgusting coward. All you have to say is, no, I don't stand by my endorsement. I hadn't seen those texts. I hope he runs his race. It's going to be up to the voters as to whether they want him as their AG. But no, I do not stand by my endorsement now that I've learned the full picture of who this man is. She wouldn't do it, Walter.
I'm mystified. What prevents her from doing it? Is
Nothing.
there some pact? Is there some pact that they make that, some evil pact to all go down or rise together? We just fell down another flight of stairs into hell by even tolerating this guy for 5 seconds, because this isn't just rhetoric. Rhetoric is something aimed at the public. This was a revelation of his feelings and his backstage personality. Just as we've seen with Katie Porter, her suddenly go, get out of my shot, and stop being the sort of measured vice principal lady that she pretends to be. We saw behind the scenes here. And as someone who wrote a book, and I'm quite serious, about a psychopathic killer who was a friend of mine and who disguised himself for many years, you get very few shots.
What's the name of that book?
Blood Will Out. It's about a man who
literally we all need to read it.
Yeah, you really do. And it gives me great insight into the sociopathic mind. And sociopaths have a belief that which is hidden isn't real, and that which is public is real, and only that. But this guy, somebody who knew him, somebody who was concerned, somebody who didn't want to do it and waited, finally felt a pang of conscience and showed us the behind the scenes reality of this man. And that we laugh that off and that we just pass it on and we don't require straight answers about it means, in an age of assassinations, It's one thing if this had come out 5 years, but this is very germane at this point. Shows that we've lost not just our way, but maybe become monstrous ourselves.
Really good point. Like the timeliness of it. At any point in history, it would have been wrong not to denounce. But right now, you can't denounce it. Right now, you want to, with a wink and a nod, suggest you're fine with it. And her defense
and he's only
was like,
running. He's only running to be the chief.
Texts.
Wait, and then let's think about his job. His job is to prosecute criminals. Is he's going to do that very selectively, or is he? I can see some murderer sitting up in court after being sentenced and screaming at the judge, the man who put me here wants to kill people too.
Yeah. I think it was
throw the stone.
Eric Erickson, he's got his JD and he's a radio host as well down in Atlanta and a conservative commentator for a long, long time. Great guy. He was making the point on X today. I'm going to butcher it a little, but it was to the effect of down in Georgia, you had a race for governor involving Herschel Walker, who had all these personal allegations against him, which were not good. But at least in his case, They all preceded when he got help for these issues. And so he had it passed, but it really genuinely was the past. And voters voted Republican up and down the ticket in Georgia, but not for him, for U.S. Senator, not for him. They drew the line, those Georgian voters did. And he talked about, I think it was Roy Moore in Alabama, same thing. They were like, no, this is a conservative red state, but no, we have standards. And he was saying, in Virginia, will you do the same? Even if you vote for Spanberger for governor, which you shouldn't, and a Democrat lieutenant governor, do you actually feel comfortable putting this guy in your state's top law enforcement post? Or will you hold the line on what is decent, just a bare level of decency?
The answer is no. We already know the answer. That murder, that assassination has become a political wedge issue is insane. I can see them going around with one of those shows of hands at a big debate when there are 8 candidates. Now, which of you here condemns political assassination if it's of Republicans and MAGA right-wing types? And they all sort of hesitate to put up their hands because at this point, they're playing to their constituency. Obviously, the guy doesn't fear a backlash among his constituency. He probably has gotten secret applause for it. My question to him at a debate would be, okay, we know that you fantasize about murdering children. How close have you ever come to doing it?
Yeah.
What's the line with you? Is it just something you use to entertain yourself and your friends, or do you actually consider doing it at times?
You'd have to go through it with him. You texted that you had talked to her before about your penchant for wanting to murder Republicans. Clearly, there was an earlier conversation. He's now denying that it was, as she claimed, his texting partner, who was a Republican moderate in the Virginia State House. But she says it was a conversation in which he said he wanted to see cops get shot. And I totally believe her. I believe every word she's saying, and I don't believe his denial. But in any event, when you picked up the conversation about now shooting the Republican House Speaker at the time in the head with 2 bullets, that was doubling down on your earlier sentiments about wanting to see cops shot dead, right? How did your thinking evolve? And then when you picked her up the phone to call her and triple down on the messaging and she hung up on you, what made you then text more about wanting to see the children die and their mother? Just walk him through it. You could completely eviscerate the guy just by sticking to his words. Here was Winsome Sears getting in on the action, trying to make it a debate where she got to ask her own opponent some of these questions in SOT 8.
Why my opponent won't say beyond its abhorrent and disgusting, why she won't say it is not okay and that he must leave the race because J. Jones advocated the murder, Abigail, the murder of a man, a former speaker, as well as his children who were 2 and 5 years old. You have little girls. What would it take him pulling the trigger? Is that what would do it? And then you would say he needs to get out of the race? Abigail, you have nothing to say? Abigail, What if he said it about your your 3 children? Is that when you would say he should get out of the race, Abigail? You're running to be governor.
Okay, that whole thing was so awkward.
Isn't she brave standing there? And
just for the listening audience, Abigail is looking straight ahead. Winsome is to her left, and she's staring at her saying, Abigail, Abigail. And Abigail will not even look at her and obviously will not answer either. Go ahead, Walter.
Well, we had a Minnesota state legislative leader murdered at home just a couple of months ago. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is not a fanciful scenario whatsoever. And also, if she admits it's abhorrent, then she needs to explain why people who are abhorrent should be attorney general. I mean, take it a little further. The problem here is reflexive loyalty to party over any other value in society.
Yeah,
and that's where we're getting. And once it's reflexive loyalty at any cost, then you essentially have war. Maybe not hot war, but you've got war, because the whole idea of politics is that you're finding little pieces of overlap, or you're negotiating what you want versus what they want, and you're each giving a little. But when it's ultimate like this, it may as well just be a cage match. Let's just see you go at it.
You know, I'm reminded, Walter, of what my old therapist said to me. After I got out of my first marriage, I was seeing a therapist. She was very helpful to me when it came to relationships. I call her my Lady Amy. I write about her in my memoir, and I really loved her. She changed my life. And we were talking about dating men. And I was newly out on the single scene. And I don't know, I'd gone out on like a date or something. And I was like, I don't know, this guy's this way and he's that way. And she said to me, put this one back on the shelf. Put this one back on the shelf. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? She goes, there are lots of them. There are lots of them. And I was like, what do you mean? No, there aren't. And she was like, no, there are lots of them. And she was so right, because then later I met Doug, and he was such a catch. And thank God I didn't, keep that one off the shelf who I had started with. And my point is, I look at their holding on to this Jay Jones, and they could take Milady Amy's advice. Put this one back on the shelf. There are lots of them. Your party will go on if it maintains some basic standard of decency. But I mean, if you are going to ask Virginia voters to make this guy who wanted to see a Republican get shot in the head just because he's Team Red, along with his babies in their mother's arms, you are sullying your brand to the point of no return. He's got to go back on the shelf. Save yourselves. Why they don't get that, Walter, I don't know. Or maybe it's just that blind party loyalty you always see among the Democrats.
I'll give you a couple of more nuggets of wisdom from my close-up study of psychopathy. And I'm not shy about calling this that. It's not that he wants to see that person die or those 2 children die. He wants to see people die. He wants to see death. He wants to see violence. That's how he thinks. And the truth is, that isn't a thinker. That is an emotional basket case. But people fear these people. And I think, strangely, one of the reasons this guy's going to get away with it is the people around him are afraid of him. We don't know the rest of his profile. He could be a very aggressive, look at this Katie Porter. No one would want to spend 5 seconds.
I promise you.
No one would want to spend 5 seconds in a room with her, but they're intimidating.
I desperately want to get to know her better.
I want to have a pillow fight with her.
Buy gold and get free silver. That's right. For every $5,000 purchased from Birch Gold Group this month in advance of Veterans Day, they will send you a free patriotic silver round that commemorates the Gadsden and American flags. It's like the Cornelius purchase of gold. Silver and gold all together, thanks to Birch Gold. Look, gold is up over 40% since the beginning of this year, and Birch Gold can help you own it by converting an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. Plus, they will send you free silver honoring our veterans on qualifying purchases. And if you are current or former military, Birch Gold has a special offer just for you. They're waiving custodial fees for the first year on investments of any amount. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and thousands, tens of thousands of happy customers, consider diversifying your savings into gold. Text MK to the number 989898 for a free info kit and to claim your eligibility for free silver with qualifying purchases. Before the end of the month. Do it before the end of the month. Again, text MK to 989898. Message and data rates may apply. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.